Unpeeled. And we start off with some very important news, actually. And that is news that Toyota Motor Corporation, the owner of Lexus, has adopted an official, actual 3D printed spare part. So this is important that this is not some testing. This is not some, kind of press release part or something. This is an actual qualified, pass all the quality checks and things spare part. It's being made by Solize. Solize is a company, it's like a reseller, 3D printing service, that kind of company in Japan. Previously, they made spare parts for Nissan's NISMO unit, and this is going to be a spare part for a Lexus, and that's great. So the fact is, given that how well difficult it is to do business with Toyota, and how very demanding that company is in quality and things like that, this is a great step forward. Um, it's having said that, it's not like, this is not something for your Camry. It's not your Camry dashboard. What they've done is, I think that's pretty smart actually. They've picked a rather low volume part. Rather low volume, well, extremely low volume, I would guess, by the overall statistics in Toyota as a group, because this is a part for the LC500. LC500 is a very high-end coupe from Lexus. It starts about $100,000. And it's not even like a standard spare part for this. It's actually it's a part using HP MGF, just like the parts for NISMO, and it's a oil cooler duct for the automatic transmission. And it's not just a regular oil cooling duct; it's a special duct for like track days and racing, kind of like really kind of high output kind of use. So it would probably be available either as a loose option or at a very premium package. I couldn't. I tried to find it. I couldn't see it listed now. It's not specified. Maybe it's on next model or an iteration on the model next year, or it's like a more of an aftermarket type of thing. So I couldn't really actually find out how much it costs and that kind of thing. But hopefully we'll find out more later. What the other thing is, they also did a life cycle analysis on the part. Now this is important because that means you're serious and it's really boring and nobody likes doing them. And they found out that it emits less greenhouse gas. Now, the cool thing about these life cycle analysis is that they mean a lot to these really large companies. And also, we're really expensive. Like part to part cost is really high. And if we can prove to these companies that the overall cost of the part or the environmental impact is very advantageous, then maybe this will move the needle towards 3D printing. So this is really nice. What I also like about this is I spent a lot of time on the Lexus website. And Lexus is always kind of known for having very complete cars, in the sense that the option packages, there was like I don't know, maybe there was like a premium one and a normal one, and that was it, essentially. Unlike, for example, Volkswagen or Porsche, where there's tons and tons of options, and you could spend essentially the car in options, right? Um, but now, what I really noticed about this component and about just about Lexus generally is that they've now have a bunch of options, which I really didn't expect them to have. They have, for example, a pet kind of hair removal kit and a first aid kit for pets. I was like, I did not expect this at all to have it. I did not know that there was first aid kits for pets. It's very logical, I guess, but I had never considered this possibility, to be honest. But what I do like about this is think about these parts. Think about, if Toyota is comfortable enough taking this apart in a low volume vehicle, a really low volume part, maybe they can, feel more comfortable with this going forward. If they just use this, to save on environmental costs, or to save on costs because they don't have to make all these spare parts in ahead of time or store them for 20 years, that's advantageous. But what if Toyota can make really interesting spare parts that let you imagine owning a car? Things that really fit your life or fit your hobbies or fit your passions. And that when you're online in their configurator, you're like, oh my God, a pet spare kit. That's for Fifi, and it'll keep Fifi healthy if I crash my Lexus. And I still don't understand the train of thought behind this thing, but just generally, you know, that kind of spare part might actually push the needle in another way, and in making these 3D printed spare parts really worth their while, in essence, by letting them help people make the decision to buy the car. So I think this is great. Even if they don't do this, it's a momentous point for us, a momentous piece of news. I hope a lot of people share it and talk about it, because this is fantastic. Because there's a lot of trial balloons. This is an actual spare part with a SKU number, everything like that, in the official Toyota inventory. I think that's just absolutely fantastic. The next news is by Michael Rivera, who's an assistant professor at the Department of Computer Science at University of Colorado at Boulder. And he, together with Sandra and Scott Hudson, has written a paper called Designing a Sustainable Material for 3D Printing with Spent Coffee Grounds. Now, we know that People have looked at spent coffee grounds a lot before, all sorts of different things. What I like about this is it's an open access paper. They talk you exactly through what they did to get this material to work. They talk you through the settings and all this kind of stuff. So this could really be a stepstone for you at home even to do this. If you wanted to. So you could do this on a desktop 3D printer because they did, and they're sharing everything in an open access paper. So I think this is wonderful. And this is not some filament you buy. No, this is a method for you to do this at home. So what did the guys do? They took material from a coffee shop, spent coffee grounds, this was espresso grounds and things like that. They dried it using sunlight, and they sifted it. Then they mixed it, and then they added water, and they put that water in syringes. And they made like an open source syringe extruder, and they attached it to a regular like Prusa i3 type 3D printer. Now, then they meddled around with the settings a bit to get a continuous extrusion. They worked at a 1 millimeter layer height, 100% infill, and they got 14% shrinkage on the part. And a little bit different in all directions, but just get about 14% shrinkage. Now, that's, of course, kind of catastrophic. They kind of re-engineered stuff, tried to compensate it, and they're now getting like 1% error rate if they compensate for the shrinkage. And that's doable. I mean, you're not going to want to make like a belt buckle out of it or something that really fits. But some of the example here, the planters, that's totally going to work with this, right? The tensile strength is about 1.4% of PLA, so that's not great. I wouldn't be using it for your parachutes anytime soon. But this is a material they hope that can be certified or used as compostable material. So think about this. They were thinking of examples such as coffee cups or these planters. Like imagine just the planters that you use around the house, or you print them and then use them, and it's really very sustainable material. I love this. I think this is fantastic. I think somebody has to make a commercial solution that will make cups and coasters, all sorts of things. I think as a designer, I think it's wonderful to look at this and see if there's products out there you can make, because this stuff is going to cost nothing. And there's a lot of novelty value. And I think as people, I think it might be really cool to just make planters for your house. Definitely if you've got syringe extruders, but if you don't, there's some plans for some. You can buy them. And this could be a very nice path forward. Now, again, this has been done before, but I like the way that they're doing this, approaching this, and making this very open and accessible. I love this. So the next news comes to us from Dubai, and this is, by the way, this is the syringe extruder. I think I've seen this before on certain sites, and the rest of the printer looks pretty darn normal. They print on a Teflon PTFE sheet, and everything seems super durable. This is not like I've seen people attempt much more significant rebuilds of their printer for doing other stuff. Okay, so the next bit of news comes to us from Dubai, and this is something that was reported before, but is now Sheikh Hamdan bin Mohammed bin Rashid Al Maktoum, the Crown Prince of Dubai, has approved the Dubai Marine Transport Master Plan 2030. And this has been talked about before, but now it's actually going to become a reality. And that is that they're going to expand a lot of their marine transport network. So Dubai is, a lot of it is on the shore. There's parts of the country that are a bit divided. There is some public transport infrastructure, but it's underutilized. And they have an existing kind of marine transport infrastructure, which is also kind of like really small, but there's parts where you cross the creek and you go places, usually just for, to show people, but some people use it every day to go to certain work or shopping and that kind of thing. Now they're going to expand it a total 188%, a 400% increase in passenger lines, and totally they're going to have 258 vessels. Now, some of these vessels, we don't know if it's 1 or 5, I don't know, are going to be 3D printed. Just wonderful, because we've looked at 3D printing for military craft. We think it's going to be used and is being used, hint, in certain bridge attacking vessels at the moment. 3D printing, we think that's being used extensively. But in passenger craft, apart from the small ones, in a kind of this transport craft is a huge market. We expect that to be a lot bigger. And, this is a really nice application. Some of the other vehicles are going to work, a couple of them are going to be autonomous or partially autonomous. They're going to be electric. And some of them are going to be 3D printed. And of course, ultimately, the country hopes to develop a kind of autonomous selected 3D printed kind of vessel that would, of course, be really cheap and a really great way for people to get around. But again, we don't know what proportion of these things are going to be which ones out of the expanded craft. It's meant to carry 20 people. It's supposed to work just like, or look a lot like the Abras, where we're kind of very simple, cute little wooden ships. And it's supposed to work a lot like them, but not have a guy and not have a polluting kind of petrol engine on board. So this is absolutely wonderful, and I think this is also a good thing. And like I think it's underutilized thing of looking at small automated, like people are looking at drone boats, but imagine drone boats for transport and drone boats for transport in cities that I don't know, Amsterdam or Hamburg, or drone boats for transport across inland waterways and things like that. I think, and then on top of that, passenger craft. I think there's a lot of potential here, and I think it's been a bit underutilized and not sufficiently looked at. So that was what I was going to talk about with you today. This was another edition of 3D Printing News Unpeeled. Thanks to 3dprint.com. My name is Joris Peels, and I hope that you learned something